It's July 1974, and a bizarre scene is unfolding in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. A massive, heavily industrialized ship is holding completely stationary on the water, surrounded by circling Soviet naval vessels. The Soviet crews circling the area monitored the ship as a commercial mining vessel. They were blind to the CIA's true objective: seizing a nuclear-armed ballistic missile submarine directly from the seabed. 6 years earlier, the Soviet submarine K-129 suffered a catastrophic internal explosion. The blast tore through the hull, sending the entire vessel plunging 3 miles down to the bottom of the ocean. The Soviets searched frantically for their missing crew and equipment, but eventually gave up. The U.S., however, realized that whoever reached that wreck first would secure a massive strategic advantage in the Cold War. This map illustrates how the U.S. military found it. They used SOSOS, a vast acoustic detection network originally designed to track enemy ship movements. By analyzing the underwater sound of the implosion, they pinpointed the exact resting place of the dead sub, roughly 1,500 miles northwest of Hawaii. Inside that steel tube sat highly valuable military assets: fully functional nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles, the Soviets' cryptographic equipment, and their secret naval codebooks. This depth gauge visualization shows the primary physical barrier. The sub rested at 16,500 feet, where water pressure exceeds 7,000 pounds per square inch, enough to instantly crush standard equipment. And as this scale shows, even if a vehicle could survive that pressure, it would then have to grasp and hoist a flooded 2,000-ton steel behemoth all the way back to the surface. In 1970, the technology to execute a deep water lift of this magnitude simply did not exist. Recovering the K-129 was a complex physics and engineering problem that required inventing an entirely new class of machinery. To solve that engineering vacuum, the CIA launched Project Azorian. It was a highly classified black ops program with a towering budget of $350 million. The agency needed to construct a colossal ship for the mission, but they needed a reason for building it that wouldn't arouse Soviet suspicion. They approached Howard Hughes, the eccentric billionaire aviator. Hughes agreed to serve as the public face of the operation. He announced he was funding a commercial venture to mine the ocean floor for these manganese nodules, which are deep-sea rock concretions rich in valuable metals. While PR teams distributed brochures to the press about this mining venture, highly vetted government engineers were rapidly assembling a naval recovery vessel under intense secrecy. The cover story provided a perfect logical explanation. It justified the massive budget, the specialized heavy machinery, and exactly why a giant civilian ship would be loitering in the middle of the Pacific Ocean for weeks. The custom-built Hughes Glomar Explorer spanned 618 feet and featured a massive central derrick common to industrial drill ships. This design provided the necessary mechanical capacity while doubling as a visual disguise. This cross-section diagram highlights the ship's primary classified feature, the moon pool. This massive internal cavity sat directly beneath the derrick, hidden behind giant underwater hull doors. Inside that cavity rested Clementine, a sprawling mechanical capture vehicle outfitted with heavy steel claws, perfectly spaced to match the dimensions of the sunken submarine. The extraction process required the crew to assemble a heavy steel pipe string, piece by piece, driving Clementine 3 miles straight down into the freezing darkness to grab the target. Just as the lift began in the summer of 1974, Soviet intelligence vessels arrived on the scene, dropping anchor merely hundreds of yards from the Glomar Explorer to watch the supposed mining operation. The CIA crew now had to successfully maneuver a multi-ton mechanical claw at the absolute bottom of the ocean, hauling up a Soviet nuclear submarine, while Soviet sailors observed their every movement from next door. Down on the ocean floor, Clementine made contact. The heavy steel claws slowly closed around the submarine's damaged exterior, gripping the metal tightly. The crew began the agonizingly slow winching process. The central derrick groaned under the immense strain as 2,000 tons of dead weight were pulled free from the mud and started the 3-mile ascent. But the underwater forces proved too intense. As they were hauling the prize up, one of the primary steel arms on the capture vehicle cracked and sheared off under the stress. Without that structural support, the fragile submarine broke apart. 2/3 of the K-129 slipped through the remaining cloths and plunged straight back down into the black abyss. In seconds, the nuclear missiles and the highly sought-after cryptographic codebooks were destroyed, lost permanently to the seafloor. The Glomar Explorer did manage to successfully windchop the forward section of the vessel. From this piece, the CIA salvaged vital acoustic data, though it was only a fraction of their target payload. Inside that forward section, the recovery team also found the bodies of 6 Soviet submariners. The U.S. crew provided them with a formal, filmed military burial at sea. When the details of the mission were eventually declassified, they sparked an immediate historical debate. Was an expenditure of $350 million, worth billions today, justified for pulling up only a fragment of a ruined ship? Regardless of the financial return on investment, Project Azorian demonstrated the severe willpower of the U.S. government. They engineered and deployed an entirely new class of deep-sea technology, proving exactly how far they were willing to go to secure an advantage in the Cold War.